Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series, the Unported playlist, where we take a look at 21 of my favorite arcade games that were never ported to home consoles. And today we're taking a look at Harley Davidson and L.A. Riders for the Sega Model 3. Now if you've never seen this in an arcade before, there was a giant replica of a Harley Davidson motorcycle that you would sit on and lean left and right to be able to steer, as well as having a throttle and a brake. So the cabinet on this game was gigantic. I played it once, and when it was available in the 90s, it was not cheap. I think it cost $2 to play this, and I tried one round, and I wanted to spread my money around, so I decided to play something different. But as far as the game's concerned, this is definitely a precursor from Sega to Crazy Taxi. This seems like the prototype for that game. Now you get your choice between different motorcycles, and they all control slightly differently, but not so much so when you're using Supermodel the emulator. I think the motorcycles must have had some sort of actuators in them to control how hard or how easy it was to be able to turn the motorcycle in the arcades, because I remember, depending on what you picked, there'd be different feels for the controls. But as far as how the gameplay works, each round takes like 4 minutes. I'm going to show you 2 different playthroughs of this game, because you have one giant map and you have 4 waypoints. You need to get to the 4 waypoints before you run out of time. And that's why I say it feels like a precursor to Crazy Taxi, because you have that checkpoint to checkpoint racing. But Crazy Taxi is a much larger game. And I think the big attraction for this, other than just, having that Model 3 arcade in arcades, was Sega showing that they had this big amusement attraction with this full-size replica Harley Davidson sitting on the floor. Because as far as how long it takes you to complete this game, 4 minutes, maybe 5 tops. But on different playthroughs, there are different checkpoints. So on the first playthrough, when you see the map at the end, we've only really seen about 20% of where you could have gone. And on the second playthrough, you get a completely different course. Even though it's on the same map, you're going to be going completely different places. So it does have a little bit of replayability to it, but not so much. I definitely just slammed that fence there. But why was this not brought home? I think it makes perfect sense on this one. A lot of times I'm questioning why something wasn't ported, but this one seems to have 2 really easy answers. First, it's not long. No one was going to pay full price for this because you can beat the game in 5 minutes and see the credits. That's not going to be reviewed well. You would have had to expand greatly on this game to be able to make any sort of good review and money at home. Secondarily, I'm sure it's a licensing issue. If Sega wanted to bring this game back out, you'd have to pull the Harley Davidson, all that licensing out completely, or you'd have to relicense it. It would probably be economically unviable to do something like actually re-release this game. But it's an awesome game, and if you saw it in arcades, you definitely would want to play it because it looked huge. I haven't seen one in years, and I would say a lot of those cabinets that had those big, sit-down controllable vehicles, those seem to break a lot because no one treats arcade games very well. They beat them up. And a lot of my PCBs that come in, a lot of the controls, whether they're light guns or otherwise, require a lot of maintenance and repair to get them back to a working order. What I'll let you do is watch a little bit more of the raw gameplay, and I will come back and talk a little bit more about Harley Davidson L.A. Riders, but enjoy the soundtrack, enjoy what's going on, and we'll be back in just a bit to talk a little bit more about the game. There you have it. We just beat Harley Davidson and L.A. Riders in 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I took a look at the time code, and you will see here that we saw a very small portion of the map, but that was a 3 minute and 20 second playthrough. And the CPU does pick different routes for you. It's a random number generator, so you never know what you're going to get. It's not motorcycle specific, but you can definitely see why this game remains in arcades. 3 minutes and 20 seconds is not going to be very popular if you pay $60 for the game on something like the Dreamcast. But I 100% feel like this was just the training ground for Crazy Taxi, because it has a very similar look, it has a very similar vibe, and the gameplay is identical, except you're going to Harley Davidson checkpoints versus going to KFC or the other stores in Crazy Taxi. But you can definitely see all the inspiration that came from this. I do love these views. Model 3 has a really interesting metal reflective effect to it. It's not a real reflection, but it looks nice enough to give you a sense of what metal actually looks like, and we just jumped an entire golf course bunker right there. But now we're seeing parts of the game that we never saw before, so on repeated playthroughs, you do get a better chance at taking a look at what's going on in the game. I kind of wish it just had a free run mode for 3 or 4 minutes versus just the checkpoint to checkpoint racing, but it's enough to keep you entertained. And like I said, the real hook of this game was the arcade cabinet, being able to be a kid, or even an adult I guess, and sit on a full-size Harley Davidson plastic motorcycle and be able to turn with the handlebars, to be able to use the throttle and the brake. Definitely something that you wanted to experience. And I wish these sort of cabinets existed more, but they just break so often, so trying to find one in the wild would be incredibly rare. And obviously, between the licensing issues with this game and the short length, really the only way you're ever going to be able to play this again, unless Sega just does something that I do not expect, is going to be emulating it on the Model 3. And what I love about the Supermodel emulation is I'm playing this in 16:9 widescreen. And granted, the HUD is locked to a 4:3 size, everything else looks perfect. Some Model 3 games have some graphical issues in 16:9, but Harley Davidson L.A. Riders looks absolutely perfect. You get a wider field of view, you get to see what's coming up more, minus that car which just completely T-boned me and drove off without even thinking about it. But everything looks great. I think some of the collectible Harley Davidson logos that you pick up for extra points as you're playing, some of their textures are missing, but that's the only thing I've noticed in my entire time playing this game on my computer for this unported playlist that had any sort of graphical issues whatsoever. So it's really easy to run, it doesn't require a lot of system requirements, and it really is going to be the only way that you're going to get a chance to enjoy this awesome game. I do wish I could find a cabinet for it though, because in some ways arcades are special just because you can experience something that you don't get the chance to experience at home. Now back in the 90s, the Model 3 was way more powerful than any home console or any computer, but today, the most powerful arcade game on a floor in Japan is no more powerful than your home PC, and in a lot of instances is actually less powerful. But the experiences that you can have in arcades are completely different than you have at home. Taito just released a game some time ago, Elevator Action, and they took the formula and put it into first person, and there's gigantic elevator doors that articulate and cover the screen in between levels or for story stages, and you just can't replicate that at home. And Harley Davidson L.A. Riders is just something, again, that you can't replicate at home. You can't have a full-size motorcycle in your house unless you're an arcade collector, and you're foolish because we kind of do that sort of stuff. Granted, I'm in a condo, and even if I found this game and wanted it, unless my wife let me take apart our dining room and turn it into a Harley Davidson L.A. Riders room, I can't have this either. But that's why I've always loved arcades, and that's why I wanted to talk about these games. We can still play them, we can still enjoy them. We might not be getting 100% of the experience because we're playing on an Xbox One pad versus a gigantic plastic motorcycle, but it is still 100% worth experiencing them, and I can't recommend highly enough to play this game. Not only is it fun, but you get a true sense of where Crazy Taxi came from, because Sega made both these games, and I stand by the fact that this was just a test run for Crazy Taxi. Short of that, thanks so much for watching. If you could do us a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe. It takes us a lot of time to make each one of these episodes, and we really appreciate your support. Otherwise, we'll be back on Tuesday and Friday with more episodes in our series, and we'll have another unported arcade game for you on Sunday. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.